This video is brought to you by A12 Productions. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to enjoy the videos. Also, please try and comment and rate the videos. Thank you. For the moment, this else statement will attach to this if statement. So what happens here is we say if false is true, output false, and yeah, so if false is true, output false, else output true. And because it's just an else clause, it doesn't need any condition. That's why we don't have any parentheses and an expression here. It's just else by itself, because it says if everything above fails, you know, I'm your last hope. That's what the else statement is. Now moving on, we're going to take a look at the else if, and also we're going to take a look at doing numerical operations inside the as the expression. So here we're saying if 1 is greater than 10 is true. Okay, basically, ultimately we're saying if 1 is greater than 10, but you've got to kind of think mechanically. What you're actually saying, if 1 is greater than 10 is true. Okay, then output false. And the reason I put false there is because this statement is not true, so it's false. So if it somehow became true, it would still be outputting false, because it shouldn't really be outputting. I know that sounds kind of confusing, but just all you have to understand is that this shouldn't be outputting, because of course 1 is not greater than 10, so this expression will not give a true value to the if statement. Therefore this statement is entirely skipped. But like the else, we have a little clause called the else if, and the else if isn't exactly like the else. It's kind of like an if, but it attaches to an if. So we have if 1 is greater than 10, output false. Else if 1 is less than 10, output true. So basically, this else if, it's not a last hope, because it still has a condition. 1 might still not be less than 10, and this statement as a block might still be overall skipped, but it gives it a second hope. And if we just save this again and press F5, okay, let's just go back up to the top. First we have if false is true, and of course it's not, so it doesn't output anything. Then we have if false is true, output false, and it's not, but then we've got this else statement, so it outputs true. Then we have if 1 is greater than 10, and it's not, so it doesn't output false, but it's got else if 1 is less than 10, and 1 is less than 10, so it outputs true, which is this second true here. And then finally a third true, which we're about to get onto now, and that's with all three of the things we've learnt. We're going to combine the if, the else, and the else if together to have an if, else if, and an else statement. And this is generally what all your if statements will be, because basically every time you come to check something, you always need more than one check, pretty much most of the time, and you always need a last resort. So we're using some different operators as well here for a change. So we're saying if 1 is greater than or equal to 10, then output false, and of course 1 is not greater than or equal to 10, so it skips this, but then it goes on to this else if, and the else if is 1 is less than or equal to 10, and 1 is less than or equal to 10, so it outputs true, and it doesn't have a chance to check the else, because if this is true, then all the other code is skipped. Well, first let's talk about this one. If this is true, this code is executed here, but it skips the else if here, and it skips the else here. If this is true, it failed the first time, of course, so it skipped that. It executes that, but it doesn't execute this. If this is, well, yeah, and then I was about to say if this is true, but of course this is an else statement. It doesn't have a condition. So if both these fail, then this is executed. If this is executed, neither of these two are executed. Basically, only one of all your statements can be executed, okay? But just as an example, we're going to change this to if 1 is equal to, and just these double equals I want to talk about quickly. A lot of people confuse the single equals with the double equals, and that's a key error. This goes back to something where I talked about how we can use just variables by themselves, like we've used sort of here, to give an expression. Now what we're doing here is we're saying else if 1 equals 10. Okay? I'm not actually sure what this would do, because it's kind of, yeah, I'm not sure what would happen here. It would probably generate a compile error, because you're trying to like redefine numbers, which isn't really possible. But just imagine these are variables. Imagine we're not actually looking at numbers here, we're just looking at variables. So if else if num1 equals num2, as opposed to else if num1 equals num2. Now the first way, what we're doing is we're reassigning num1 to the value of num2, and then the resulting expression will be most likely true. Actually, it's getting kind of complicated now. We probably should create these variables. Let's just create these variables. Int num1 equals 5. Int num2 equals 10. Okay. Num1 equals num2. What's happening here is in this else statement, in this else if statement, we're reassigning the value of num1 from 5 to the value of num2, which is 10. So num1 now has a value of num10. And what's happening here is after the reassignment, it's just checking num1. So in comments, we'll just put the resulting check is actually num1. Okay, so here this is exactly the same as this after the assignment is done. And because remember our if statement, whoops, I've put else there. Because our if statement is just checking for a true or false value. Remember how we talked about false is stored as 0 and true is stored as 1, although true can be any number that is not 0. What's going to happen here is this else if will generate a true statement, because num1 is not 0, so therefore it has to be true. Okay,